So friends, our purpose for this evening is to reiterate the aims of Project Violet. I don't want to make any assumptions that everybody knows what Project Violet is, so I'll just say what it is in a couple of sentences. I thought it'd be really good this evening to explain where we are at this stage in the project, just to give you an idea of that and put it in context, to explain what's coming next, and then to share a resource for local churches and associations to engage with, to prepare them to receive the findings. So what is Project Violet? Project Violet aims to investigate women's experiences in ministry whilst developing women ministers. The project will help us to understand more fully the theological, missional and structural obstacles women ministers face in the Baptist community in Great Britain and identify ways forward. That's always been our aim, and it continues to serve as well. There are a number of phases to the project. So we began with phase 1, which was kind of similar to this, but we met with our stakeholders individually. So Helen and I had 44 meetings, and we didn't travel the country. The whole project has been online. So we engaged in 44 Zoom meetings, pretty much saying the same thing about the aims of Project Violet, and then engaging with our stakeholders and learning from them and listening to the questions that they had about women's experiences in ministry. We then moved to phase 2, which was an invite to all our Baptist women ministers to invite them to share their story in no more than 1,000 words, the joys and sorrows in ministry. We received 49 stories, which was an incredible response. So we have about 50,000 words of women's stories. Those will be embargoed for 30 years and placed in the Angus Library. So in 30 years, when men and women are researching women's experiences of ministry, they'll be able to go to the Angus Library and find some material. We then moved to phase 3, and this has been working with 17 co-researchers, 4 distinct groups. Group 1 is women in kind of regional ministry, senior leadership, if we want to call it that, amongst us as Baptists. Group 2 was our millennial leaders. Group 3, Black and Brown women ministers, and Group 4, those with a caring responsibility or disability. So we've been working with these 4 groups, and we're just coming to the end of this particular phase. Each woman has chosen a topic of their choosing, something that they wanted to explore as their own research, and use different methodologies to kind of put their research together and craft it. These women have worked with a theological reflection group and gone through a cycle of sorts. So we've been working with a co-research and reflection group, a theological reflection group, and then jointly they've discussed their own particular research, and they have been fascinating and rich discussions. And then out of this, Helen will say a bit more, but there will be a discernment phase at a final conference in April 2024. In addition, we've also engaged ecumenically. So we met in York in November with 12 women from across 5 different traditions. And that was a day of sharing gifts and challenges with each other. So we facilitated a learning space where people could share with each other. And that was a really rich day. So that material will also be added to Project Violet. I'm going to hand over to Helen, and Helen will talk us through the next phase. Thanks, Helen.
Thank you, Jane. As you can gather, a huge amount of research has been undertaken, and all that research has culminated with people making requests for change, things which they feel would improve women's experience of ministry and make for a more just ministry situation. All the co-researchers and the theological reflectors will be meeting in April of next year to pray, discern and reflect on those requests for change and decide collectively which ones of them should be presented to the Baptist community. When they've done that, there will be a report, which we're imaginatively calling the Requests for Change report, which will be released along with all the other research on the 2nd of May next year. So there's going to be quite a volume of material released on the 2nd of May. And so we're wanting to use this time between now and then to invite all the different parts of Baptist life to prepare to receive the findings and to think of what process they might go through in order to consider them. To help you prepare, we've developed 2 particular resources. Firstly, a film, and Jane will put on the screen now the details of that film. It's an interview with Helen Pankhurst, who's a well-known activist for women's justice, who talks about her experience of doing that, and in dialogue with Jane, thinks about some of the issues which can be considered when thinking about women's experience of everyday life. And you can watch that video by finding it on the website, which is listed on the screen. Accompanying the video is a very helpful leaflet, which will make it accessible to small groups in churches who might want to look at the video as a way of introducing themselves to the thinking that's gone on in Project Violet. So that's the first resource you can use between now and next April. The other resource is a series of podcasts, which will be start to drop, that's the technical term, on the 2nd of February next year, and will help people engage with the history of women's ministry in the Baptist Union, and also introduce some of the language that's involved in discussing issues of women's justice. So we're hoping that people will start to prepare for the coming of the findings by watching the film, listening to the podcasts, and indeed showing this briefing, which is on the Project Violet website, to colleagues and other interested people. So what we're also asking you to do now is to think how the parts of Baptist life you belong to and represent can find time and opportunity to consider the findings between May and September next year. We're suggesting a 4-stage process for considering the findings when they become available on the 2nd of May. The first stage is digesting. We acknowledge that we're going to be giving people a lot of material to consume. There'll be the requests for change report, there'll be some theological reflections, and then there will be the 17 reports written by the individual women co-researchers. So a lot to think about and ponder. We're also going to have a second series of podcasts, which will launch on that May date, which will be short interviews with some of the women co-researchers for those people who relate to a person rather than a page. And we hope that that will be helpful as well. So once people have digested the material, we hope that they'll discuss it. And there will be requests for change addressed at particular stakeholder groups in Baptist life, local churches, colleges, associations, various interest groups, that they will meet and discuss the findings and identify ones which they feel are straightforward and they can agree to, and others which require perhaps more work to engage with. As part of that process, we very much hope that groups will take the opportunity to meet for a time of discernment. We've surrounded this whole project with prayer, but there is a moment specifically when we need to seek the mind of Christ and work out what for each group is the call that is being placed on them in responding to the findings. And then we're hoping that everybody will come to some decisions about the action they can commit to and fill in a template so that we're aware of the action they're committing to. And by the end of September, we hope to have received responses from all parts of Baptist life, and we'll compile those into a report which will go to Baptist Union Council in October 2024. So that will be a report of agreed action, which will go to BU Council in October 2024, listing all the things that people have agreed to do and offering accountability for undertaking the actions that people have committed to. Council have committed to spend time reflecting and praying over the actions that people are committing to, so that there will be a sense of collectively setting forward on a journey following that council meeting. The aim is that during 24 to 2025, people will start to action the things which they've agreed to, and then in September 2025, they'll offer an account of the progress that they've made. And that accountability, again, will be gathered together and will be taken to BU Council in October 2025. And again, Council have committed to receive that report in October 2025, and then it should be possible at that point to ask what remains to be done, and to have a picture of what work has been done and what further work it would be good to do. So that's quite an extensive process, but we hope that it will allow a measured and due consideration of the changes that are being requested, and a process by which the different parts of Baptist life can consider what it is theirs to do. This is not an issue where the flicking of a single switch will achieve what needs to be achieved. This is going to require, we hope, every part of Baptist life to take a step forward and to undertake some changes. And so we hope that having listened to this briefing, your mind will be thinking and you'll be wanting to start to plan the process for the part of Baptist life which you belong to. If you have any questions about what we're asking of you, then please do contact us by email. You can get a hold of us at projectviolet@baptist.org.uk.